good afternoon and good morning to everyone, and welcome to Global Perspectives towards a thriving civil society in times of uncertainty. My name is Kate Mwezi, and I have been given the honour of moderating this first panel discussion today. But before we jump into it, a couple of housekeeping bits from me. So today is day 2 of Global Perspectives, and shortly after this panel discussion, there'll be a short break of 15 minutes, and we'll be reconvening at 15:15 Central Eastern European Summer Time for a second 45-minute session on positive narratives for civil society. And during that session, we'll be sharing insights from research on narratives and exploring practical ways to communicate with hope and authenticity. So we do hope to see as many of you in that second session as possible. At the end of this session, there will be a short poll, which we on Zoom, which we'd invite you all to kind of take part in to help the International Civil Society Centre to improve their offer and future convenings. Okay, so let's get started. As I mentioned, my name's Kate Mwezi. I'm one of the co-CEOs at Ressus Development, and I'm delighted to be moderating this session with you all today. For those who don't know Ressus Development, we're a locally led, globally connected network celebrating 40 years this year, and it's a network that supports young leaders in driving change across the world. I'm really happy to be welcoming you all to this session that will be exploring some important themes and big questions. What is the future of civil society? What are some of the shifts we are seeing, and how can we protect and strengthen our civic spaces? What role must civil society have in shaping resilient democracies? And where do we see some of the opportunities and challenges for multilateral cooperation? Fortunately, I have not been tasked with answering these big questions alone, and I'm joined by a brilliant panel of civil society leaders who will be with us for the next hour to share some of their perspectives and answer these important questions. So before diving into our discussion, I'm delighted to introduce you to our panel speakers. We have Robin Ogilvie, Head of Division for Reforms and Partnerships for Impact from the OECD. We have Sofia Garcia, the Director of Engagement from Article 109. And Pasante Besai, a youth activist representing the World YWCA. So we're just going to take a moment and invite all three of the panelists to share their thoughts on this topic. And so it's my pleasure to invite Robin to speak first.
Thanks, Kate, and good afternoon, colleagues. As Kate said, I'm Robin Ogilvie. I'm one of the heads of division at the OECD DAC. For those who aren't familiar with the DAC, we bring together 34 of the world's major advanced and emerging economies, plus the European Union, who collectively contribute the majority of the world's official development assistance or foreign aid. Where to begin? Look, I guess it's an understatement to say that we are meeting at a moment of great uncertainty right now. Shrinking and rapidly shifting political landscapes, and many of them with direct implications for civic space and for the way in which civil society operates worldwide. In many respects, in my own sector, in the field of official development assistance, some of the transformations that we've seen in the last year are probably the most profound that we've seen since really the foundation of the international order that we came to know post World War II. But I do believe that in any challenge lies an opportunity, and I think that conversations like this one are absolutely crucial when it comes to reflecting and reimagining what a more equitable and more sustainable international development architecture might look like. And for that reason, I really welcome today's discussion. I mean, look, globally, three big shifts on my mind and on my team's mind. I oversee a team of experts here working on civil society. First, civic space is shrinking. We see restrictions on freedoms, on freedom of expression, on freedom of association, on freedom of assembly. And this is not only in the global south, we see this also in some of the OECD's member and partner countries. We're seeing foreign agent laws come up, often in successive waves with governments either curtailing access to funding, curtailing the right of civil society organizations to operate, or undermining their ability to contribute in a meaningful way to development processes. Second, shrinking aid budgets. We've really seen, in the last, let's say in the last 5 years, I mean, the proportion of the world's aid budgets that are spent on civil society organizations has stayed roughly constant, roughly about 13% of global aid. But what we don't know is what will happen this year and in the future. Across the board, we expect to see overall global official development assistance to decline by about 17% this year alone. That's huge, and I do expect that it will have an impact on civil society and on CSOs. The Human Rights Funders Network is already pointing to evidence of declining official development assistance for in the human rights field. Yet at the same time, we've got this tension. We know that well-financed human rights CSOs are critical to resisting change, to resisting democratic backsliding, to strengthening domestic governance and accountability processes. So there's a huge paradox there. And of course, we see these roles all the more important in the face of conflict, in the face of climate change, in the face of a growing humanitarian crises. And third, we see also a shift from local actors to bring power closer to communities. We see this with our members in our own work. We see it in the partner countries with which we work. It's not only a matter of fairness, it's actually about effectiveness for us. It's about sustainability. It's about the legitimacy of development and of the projects and programs that development cooperation supports. So all of these things are happening. Some of them seem to be contradictory. And I think that these are the kinds of issues that we're really grappling with right now. It's not just about adapting to rapid change, adapting to current crises, but I think, again, it's a real opportunity to think about how we rebalance some of these relationships in quite a fundamental way.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Robin. Sophia, may I ask you to come in, please?
Hi, hello. Hi, everyone. Good morning from New York and afternoon or evening for some of you. I've been introduced, so I won't introduce myself again, but maybe I will start with some words about what is Article 109, the article and the coalition, and what we do to respond, and more importantly, to correct the situation that Robin was describing. We are a coalition, a very young coalition. We've been operating only for a few months. The idea has been cultivated since Nairobi. It came out of a civil society conference, as all good ideas come out from. But it's really been set up for the last 6 months. And our mission is basically to create the necessary political momentum to reform the UN Charter. And we do that to create a space, to open a space to redefine and update the multilateral relations that are crumbling before our eyes, as all of you know. And why do we want to reform the UN Charter? What is our motivation? Where do we really come from? Because it sounds like a big idea, right? To, in the current geopolitical environment, open the foundational document and reshape it. It's definitely a big idea. Some people call it necessary, some people call it crazy, and everything in between. But basically, We come from the acknowledgement, first of all, that we shouldn't take for granted in all the actors that the system is falling apart. And the reasons for that, when you analyze how did we get where we get here, we talk a lot about, we have member states that have lost interest in investing in the multilateral system. And some not only don't invest, but actively attack it, including one of its key founders, right? Which is the US. And then there is also, so those that are attacking the system, but also those that are simply not organized to defend it. And that's the part that we also need to be aware of, is we need to get ready to defend multilateral dialogue when not everybody is on board anymore. But the second aspect is that we believe the charter that we operate around, right, the foundational charter of the UN system, and thus a big chunk of what we call multilateral relations, is simply outdated, right? The charter was written in June 1945. It's a very different world. It's a different power structure. The charter is pre-nuclear. Hiroshima and Nagasaki had not happened when they signed the charter. It's pre-digital. So global challenges like AI simply escape because they didn't exist back then. And it's pre-climate change, or how we understand it today, right? The environmental challenges of today. And as importantly, it reflects and maintains a power structure that does not correspond to the one today, right? And reinforces a system of the past by giving power to those that were powerful 80 years ago. Powerful in the terms that defined power 80 years ago. So in other words, we simply would not be driving a car that we bought in 1945 in today's highways, even if the car was the best car back then, right? But at the same time, we believe in the principles of multilateralism, and we think they are more relevant than ever, right? We are way more connected globally than we were in 1945, right? So the UN has a role to play, and our mission is to rethink it in a way that will make it effective and shock resistant, right? And attack resistant. And if we don't do this, we really believe we're gonna fall into the law of the jungle. And you know who wins in the law of the jungle, right? And who suffers. So what we put on the table in the end is a tangible and an active solution to reshape the multilateral system. We think that, piecemeal approaches are valid and sustain and keep things going, but we need now, it's a moment of, as Robin was saying, crisis is opportunity, never waste a good crisis, and it's a moment for us, it's a window of opportunity to redefine how we do things. Just a couple more notes on why Article 109. So Article 109 is I call it the hidden gem of the UN Charter. Basically, when the founders were drafting the new charter, they were very aware, and in the words of President Truman back then, that the charter should be a living document that adapts to the times, right? We didn't take those words very serious, and we waited 80 years to actually define. But it says that 2/3 of the General Assembly and 9 members of the Security Council, so there is no veto, can call for a conference to review the UN Charter, right? And very purposely, there is no veto, because one of the reasons why 109 was introduced was precisely to leave the door open to take the veto out of the charter, which didn't make the vast majority of member states happy back then, right? So we do this, so we take this hidden gem. It's a given mechanism, it's not something that comes, it is embedded in the system, which makes it inclusive. It's a General Assembly process, which makes it a committee of the whole. It's not things coming from outside, but within the system. And then what we do is mobilize member states, talk to them one by one, and create the momentum and the knowledge about this possibility for action and to get organized. And then, more importantly, we create the necessary knowledge and political capital for civil society and citizens to be ready to when that window of opportunity opens, to be ready and really have a proposal on the table, right? One of the big problems of civil society, and as I was commenting in our little chat before, this is my 13th global perspective. So after many years in the sector, I think one of our big problems as civil society is that we tend to disband and focus on our organizational areas for logical and understandable reasons. But there are moments where we need to really come together and be ready to respond if a window of opportunity for reshaping things happen. For civil society, it's a unique opportunity to take a space that, for civil society, and by that I mean INGOs, youth groups, all the indigenous groups, all the people that was excluded from the We the People's Charter, to really have a say on how do we manage our relations in the future. And very happy to respond to any questions afterwards as well on what are member states saying and what are the areas of action. So that's it for my intro for the moment.
Thank you so much, Sophia. And Basante, love to hear from you too, please.
Thank you, Kate, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour, sabah al khair in Arabic because I'm Egyptian. So hello, everyone, and it's an honor to be with you all and to share a journey concerning the empowerment of young women here in Egypt and especially in MENA region. And I will give you a brief concerning the YW4A program. So today I'm going to highlight working in restricted civic spaces concerning the working in, especially in Egypt, and the challenges here concerning like we have like burdens to just implement all the strategy and the advocacy plan here. So first that the restricted civic spaces concerning the NGOs and working with different laws and a few laws actually supporting the empowerment of women, and as well the social burden or the social culture burden and social norms. So I'm gonna give a brief concerning the YW4A program, which I was working as a program coordinator there and a leader for the women rights organization that implement all the program all over the 5 years. So I will give a brief concerning that. So YW4A, the 4A is for advocacy, accountability, agency, and for concerning the YW4A is implemented actually in 4 countries all over the world. So in MENA region, in Egypt and Palestine, and the other side of the world is in Africa, South Sudan and Kenya. So it's a program of solidarity, advocacy, and we have like 4 pathways concerning this program. So the 4 pathway lead for a leadership, to equip the young women and empower them with all the necessary tools concerning the advocacy, the leadership, and also make a change and influence others within their communities. So if I'm gonna represent the YW4A, so I used to be in this program since I was like 26. And then I was responsible for young women, and we influence each other, we empower each other. So we give like a methodology for the Rise Up is concerning how we make like the young women make a journey from the WRO is the Women Rights Organization. So we equip them with all the necessary tools to implement and to make like a solidarity within the civic spaces. And then these WROs like graduate for like choose and pick like marginalized groups of young women, and then these young women like pass through trainings and a lot of stuff, so just be leaders within their communities. So it has like over a target of 17,000 all over the world, but in Egypt we targeted 4,200 trained on the leadership, and they effectively like engaged in the advocacy field, and also as well they like make a lot of stuff concerning the advocacy and working in a very, very restricted areas here in Egypt concerning the political as well restrictions. So we didn't give them like only the trainings and material, but we give them like a tools to be used after the final implementation of the program. So currently, if I'm going to share today. So I'm going to share concerning the sustainability of these programs and these methodologies that we have to sustain until the end of this year, and then we have to make like a very, very practical way to just implement all these strategies with a very restricted as well budget and very restricted programs here with with the new laws all over the world. So that's a part of one of my speech, and as well the bridging the local voices with the global platform. So this young woman just represented Egypt and represented all over most of the 4 countries in the Human Rights Council in Geneva last year. So they have like practiced the journey of advocacy, amplifying the voices of other young women. I was one of them as well. So this bridge between the local voices to the international voices, so that's really a great idea. And as well, we engaging the faith leaders while we're implementing as allies to our strategy to make like a change. And I think the most learning is easy, but the most important is how we make influence in the life of these young women, and they start to like change within their families and within the near communities the wrongful social norms, because the social norms has a big power moreover the laws and everything else concerning the reimagine area. So that's a very, very important topic that we need all over the civic spaces work on it in collaboration with the faith leaders. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Pasante. So, as Robin, Sophia, and Pasante have reflected, we're living in a moment of multiple and accelerating crises. Civil society is under threat globally. We're seeing major rollbacks in human rights, increasing restrictive laws, disinformation campaigns, and the direct persecution of activists and organizations across civil society. And in these moments, when civil society is most needed, we're functioning in an outdated framework often, and an accelerating funding crisis. Critical funding sources such as state donor agencies have been cut back, with resources shifting to defense, diplomatic, and trade agendas. But around the world, we know that civil society is pushing back. In our work at Restless Development, we see the power and resilience of young people and youth movements around the world who are working night and day to try and hold the line. We know that civil society is working tirelessly in the absolute belief that a better future is possible and a more peaceful, equitable, and sustainable world can be created. So there is hope amidst the crises. I'd like to now turn to our panelists to hear from them around with 3 particular questions, but please do feel free to write or share any questions you may wish to ask the panelists in the chat box, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible after these kind of first prompting questions. So Pasante, I'd love to start with you. And it would be wonderful if you could share some of the biggest shifts that you have been seeing or experiencing in current political and resourcing contexts that are having the deepest impacts on the kind of young women that you're working with and the work of your organization.
Yeah, thank you, Kate, for this question. So I'm gonna give a brief. In the Egyptian context, we have like several major shifts that are significantly affecting the civil society and working with the organization. So first, the civic spaces continue to narrow to increase restrictions on NGO operations, community mobilization, and advocacy. So that make it a little bit challenging for the organization, especially in youth-led and women-led, to operate openly and sustain like a long initiative. So that's the first one. The secondly issues is concerning the gender equality and rights based work has become a little bit sensitive and more sensitive actually. This limits our ability to hold the community dialogues or to push like the policy change or introduce transformative conversations. So as well, we have a shift in donor priorities with more funding directed towards humanitarian response or economic resilience or large scale of development programs. Why it's really important. So it means that rights-based, feminist, and community-driven work receive like less flexible funding. So that's particularly affects small women rights organizations and young women activists who are close to the community needs, but often excluded from major funding channels.
Thank you, Basante. Sophia or Robin, would you like to add any kind of response?
Go ahead, Sophia. Or, no, sorry, I dropped off for a moment. Here at the OECD, we save the environment by having lights that turn off. So I had to turn themselves off. So I had to turn it back on. Look, I agree with everything that's been said, though I'm going to be a devil's advocate and maybe challenge Sophia a little bit on this notion that the UN Charter needs to be replaced. I mean, in some respects, the UN Charter, the underlying values and purposes of the UN Charter still hold true today. I mean, I just come back from a 6-year assignment as head of our office in New York. And I think it's probably fair to say that our conviction when it comes to respect for human rights, when it comes to the dignity of others, when it comes to the development of others, is something that it is still a shared end goal and should still be really the end of that journey. So yes, you wouldn't necessarily drive in a 1945 car today, but the destination, the ultimate destination, is still the same. How you get there perhaps needs reflection in light of all the changes that we've seen, not only in the last couple of years, but really over the last 75 years or so. But I think against this backdrop, I mean, one of the things that we see, and one of the things that I feel in across our membership is rising polarization, and with that, rising public criticism when it comes to the value of providing development cooperation, when it comes to the legitimacy of providing development cooperation. I think Kate said that this should be seen also against a backdrop of competing foreign policy priorities, or rather competing foreign policy instruments. And in many cases, we're seeing increased defense spending as one of the reasons that funding for development is being cut. And of course, this has, this can have the unintended consequence of contributing to declining public trust in CSOs, and in turn undermining their ability to defend official development assistance and to defend these types of public spending that are incredibly important when it comes to tackling development challenges, both local and global.
I'll come in for a minute, Kate. And Robin, you are not evil's advocate, you are our advocate, because we fully agree. As I said, this is not about questioning the UN, it's about defending it and making apt to survive, right? And definitely the principles, it's all in our website, and I will put it there. I may have been, should have been more clear, but it is about defending the principles of the Charter, but for it to be supported, it needs to deliver. It needs to be effective in a very visible way, which does, but it also has failed in many instances, especially in the last years. And I don't need to mention what has frustrated citizens across the world around the UN, right, in the last year. So it is very much about defending multilateralism, defending the principles, defending, as you were saying, I very much like the metaphor, the destination is just about making sure the system is actually working in the current times. And I will add one of the shifts that we see, or actually 2 quick points, on the positive, from the positive lens. I think one of the big shifts that has happened is that the keeper and designer of the system has disappeared in a very fast and impactful way, right? And we have to learn to live without the big brother, right? And that is a very difficult thing to do, because the impact on people's lives of funding that disappears, people as people across the world, but also people that works for the system is huge, but it also offers the opportunity to redefine power, right? And this is my second point. I'm especially happy to bring up this point in the ICSC, because one of the core points that the ICSC has been working on, and its members have been working on, is decolonization and power shift. Well, it's happening, right? It's not happening only in the calls and in the talks, it's happening live as we speak, right? When the big power disappears, there is a space to fill by other powers. So for me, it's a shift that is painful in the short term, but offers a very big opportunity in the long term to really implement this decolonization of aid that we've been talking about, and power shift, by redefining who has power within the system and who takes decisions, and embedding it in a new or renewed social contract. I think it's a good it's a shift that is negative in the short term, but we should see as an opportunity to truly put into practice the ideas we've been defining for the last 3, 5, 7 years on power shift.
That's fair. I think you make a really important point here about how power is shifting. We talk about it a lot, but in reality, it is happening. How do you feel that civil society can really respond to these crises, whether it's the funding landscape changing, the rollback of rights, the increasing in kind of conflict around the world, especially at a time where more than ever, the safety and security of organizations, and Pasante talked about the sustainability of the work she's leading because of funding. How can we be responding within this context of shifting power? Yes, Sophia, that's you.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and I'm talking from the bigger picture, so every context needs different solutions. It's not the same to do advocacy in New York as in Egypt. It's not the same to do advocacy from an organization than as an individual, right? It's definitely, my answer is a broad spectrum, but I think a couple of things that apply and are especially relevant for this group getting together through the Civil Society Center is, we need to come together in numbers, right? We really need to build networks of solidarity and trust, where I can cover for the things that others can't cover, because I'm in a position that allows me to do that, or gives me the knowledge to do that, right? And we really need to, divide and conquer, I would say, and rely on each other, and fight for things that do not affect our very narrow or focused areas of organizational focus, right? That is really solidarity. For me to engage in things that will not affect my target group or my strategic plan 2025, 2030, but that will enable others to do their part. We a few years ago, we could operate on a system that was rolling, and thus everybody could focus on their areas. But we are now in a moment of redefining that system, and we really need to be bigger than the focus of individual organizations, and develop a very strong civil society consciousness, right, where we really come together as a sector, and again, civil society in a very broad sense. And I think we also need to operate at two speeds and build on each other's. It is absolutely essential that the programmatic work that is being done continues, and we truly enable those that are doing the programmatic work to continue. Otherwise, that means people suffering today, and that is completely unacceptable. It's something we cannot stop fighting for, while at the same time, others of us in the sector fighting and making sure that the system where this programmatic work develops is fair, is inclusive, is decolonized, and it is systematically an enabler and not something that goes against our progress and our contributions. So it really sounds very big, but it's about solidarity and coming together in diverse networks. Maybe to put it in other words, we tend a lot to preach to the choir, to come together with those that are like us, that think like us, that have similar organizations, the children with the children, the youth with the youth, the women with the women. We need to get together across the ideological spectrum Otherwise, again, we preach to the choir the thematic spectrum and the focus geographically and in terms of how big or focused the picture is. So really it's about solidarity.
Thank you. And Pasante, you talked about kind of your work of bringing young women whom you're working with into a kind of global and influence space. Perhaps you could share some examples of when that solidarity has worked and the trust is building.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. So first, I want to highlight that we're not working directly with a young woman that we don't know, but we're working through women rights organizations. So this women rights organization, they have like a criteria form concerning who will select. So this program is specialized, especially from 18 to 30 and from a marginalized group. So they go and make like a partnership with other small organizations. So this is how they make a mobilization, because we cannot like one organization make mobilization for all these women, because we got into trouble with the political situation. So yeah, so that's the first is this election, and then we just give them like a training or workshop. So first we have to make with them to ensure the safeguarding policies. So first we have to make like a law of how the session is gonna make, or the training or whatever they will take. So first of all, the first in each training we held all over 5 years. So the first thing is, guys, please, this is a free space and safe space to talk. So you have to put your like policy of how to make it a safe space. So we go from there, and then of course, it's not from the first session we built like the trust, but it's come maybe by the third session, they start to share, and especially in the topics or sensitive topics, so they start to share moreover concerning their life and so on. And I think that the safe spaces, it came from acceptance for all of them. So how we gained this 4,200 girls or 200 young women, so is accept. So maybe these young women are not accepted within their communities as they are. So first we accept them to feel them like we make a priority as they are safe, and then we go from there, and we start the change from here, and we start like to put them on the right road. So that's basically a recap for the trainings and how we make or how to ensure the safety for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Robin, amongst these kind of multiple facets and crises and responses that we're seeing across civil society, what do you think are some of the opportunities and challenges for multilateral cooperation going forwards?
Thanks, Kate. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that multilateral spaces still need to play a crucial role in all of this, right? They do provide, despite all the challenges that the colleagues have discussed, they do provide a space in which to bring countries together and in which to bring actors together, and that can and should include civil society. We've been doing that proactively here at the OECD. We have a framework now for dialogue between the DAC, again, the group of 34 major donors, with civil society. It proved to be a particularly vibrant dialogue in the run-up to the Fourth International Conference on Financing for Development in the run-up to Sevilla. And I think these platforms can really provide a space to amplify messages, to share knowledge, and also to put evidence on the table. I think that one of the headaches that we face, and it's not specific to our members' support for civil society, I think it's support for development writ large, is that a solid evidence base has become more and more important when it comes to justifying aid budgets, when it comes to justifying financial support for CSOs. For a long time, we kind of justified it with a theory of change. Support for civic space and civil society results in more reactive and responsive institutions, which results in better public policies, better public investments, and ultimately better development outcomes. But today's taxpayer is more demanding. Today's taxpayer wants to see numbers. Today's taxpayer wants to see impact, wants to know how many women and girls' lives have been improved, wants to be assured that public resources, when they're scarce, are going to their intended beneficiaries. And I think that's where we can really come together using spaces such as the OECD DAC, such as the UN, and others to continue making the case. I mean, on our side, my own team of experts on civil society and civic space will, over the coming months, be working on a policy brief to make the case for continued investment in civil society and in civic space. And we'd obviously welcome your contributions to this. We're also going to be reviewing our own standards, our own intergovernmental agreement, and the main one there being the DAC's recommendation on enabling civil society. So it's been in place for 5 years. It's time for us to take stock, figure out whether it's made a difference to the world, and if not, consider reconvening as 34 members in consultation with others to see what more we could be doing in this space.
Brilliant. Thank you, Robin. Sophia or Pasante, would you like to add in any of your perspectives on what some of those opportunities are out there for kind of re-envisaging or looking at how to get to the final destination, and what role multilateral cooperation can play in that journey?
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Okay, so
Pasante.
Pasante, you want to go ahead?
no, go Sophia, it's fine. Go.
No, as said, for me, the opportunity is in the crisis. We have a once in a lifetime opportunity to redefine the system, to come out of the Second World War in practice and paper. It usually works better when the structure that organizes things responds to reality. So we really see an opportunity in coming together and getting out of the state of operating, investing in making sure that the past system keeps going, and save some of that energy and invest it into redefining the new system, right? And we are more ready than ever. Civil society has a level of organization that definitely didn't have in 1945. So there really is an opportunity to claim our space, to take our space, especially for youth groups, for vulnerable groups, for indigenous groups that were completely excluded, and for countries. I mean, only 4 African countries signed the UN Charter in 1945, and only 1/4 of the membership signed the UN Charter. The vast majority of members didn't have a voice on defining the system. So there is now an opportunity that the rug has been painfully pulled out of our feet to define that and invest some energy in getting together to see what's next. And I think coming together there is such a feeling of powerlessness and disorientation, that when you have other organizations around you, when you are aware of what others are doing to contribute to defining that new system, it's now not anymore status quo or something new, is something new or something new. And I would think we should redefine. There is a lot of member or countries and organizations interested in defining that something new. I think we should take the lead, get out of the defensive and go into the lead of defining how we want the world to look like.
Thank you, Sophia. So maybe I want to add one other opportunity concerning that, is that we have to unify the efforts concerning the sustainability of to find a progressive donors as well, because we make a very, very good stuff, and we make a great work of advocacy on ground and within the civil spaces and so on. But being without fund, it decrease the sustainability of how advocacy it could take. So now, after the YW4A program has an end after the cut of the fund, so we just have now is a sustainable a low budget, and maybe without budget to make the advocacy. So the influence on the other is not really have a big like influence. So I think we have to unify our efforts to find like a progressive and as well a donor for the advocacy, and they have a continued fund. So me personally, I found throughout all the funds that I just work with, I found that the fund is, maybe we put a lot of money in some trainings that is not really effective, and we will not go from there. So we were not going from like a progressive point. No, we just go from the beginning again. So we lost a lot of money. So we have to make like an assessment to all these organizations to just go from there and continue the work. So we will not repeat again and lose a lot of money in all of these. So I think that's the two opportunities that I found today, is that we have to find like a progressive donors, and as well like a good assessment for all the women's organizations, women rights organization or NGOs that we just work with. So we go from there, not from the beginning again, and we waste our resources.
Thank you so much, Basante. There's a couple of questions that are coming in which are really interesting because they are talking about that shift in power in many ways, especially when if I reflect on the work of Restless Development and the way that we function, we are 9 independent organizations, but working in this kind of globally connected network and trying to, for ourselves, navigate the current donor environment, whether it's by multilateral or even sort of from a foundation's perspective. What we're finding is a lot of the fund owners wish to fund local CSOs, right? Small, real kind of at the grassroots level, but don't want to do it multiple times. So they're looking for that kind of ICSO, but that is not that feels different, where the parish is in the global south. It's not with a kind of global north large NGO, I would say. And actually the mechanics of trying to implement across multiple countries out of an African country is actually very difficult because of national legislation. And so whilst what is perhaps some of the advice you might have on building the trust in emerging civil society organizations that may not be as established as some of the larger INGOs that we know and have come to know over the last 80 years or so?
I'll
It's
give it
open
the
to
first.
anyone on the panel. Sophia, go for it.
Yeah, I'll give it the first try. I don't think they have low capacity. They just have different capacity. And the problem is not on the side of the small local organization, it's on the side of the international organization that is not able to adapt. It's not the local level that has to adapt to the international level. It is the other way around. So I think we need to start by stop hesitating ourselves to feel at the local level, to feel we are not reaching the standards. The standards make no sense because they make no sense to meet people. And this is all about people. Again, the charter says with peoples. And that's the one thing we don't want to change about the charter, right? So we need to, again, redefine the narrative and put the blame on the UN not being able to adapt their operating system and operating ways to the local level and not the other way around. And again, it's because it's entrenched in power structures and visions of the world that were defined very, very long ago. So I think it's just a matter of course, you have to build bridges, you have to come to where they are, but the longer road have to be built from Geneva to the local level, from New York to the local level, from Addis to the local level. It's the international level that has to learn the local language and not the other way around, in my view.
Absolutely, I can agree more. And perhaps kind of building on this, a question from Imad from ADRA is how can faith-inspired local actors who are deeply embedded in the community fabric, often supported by global networks, and are able to mobilize resources, how can they play a constructive role in this process whilst kind of remaining non-partisan and outside of the local politics? Hassan, would you like to have a go at responding to that one?
Yeah, so I think the integration of the faith leaders or the faith roots in concerning that is there's a gap always between like the global commitments and the national implementation. So we are not on the same page all the time. So maybe there is a different like perspective from in a different country all over the world. So there is no standards that we have to follow to continue. So people like implement in a way or another in their own way. So we don't have like a standards or guidelines to how to implement. So you unify our efforts concerning that. So that's a part. And as well, I think the faith leaders, I will talk here in Egypt, especially. So they are not all in the same level, or they are not all in the same like from the same background. So everyone have like his own struggle as well. So first we have to work with them as well, like train them, and then as well, and then we go from there. But we cannot like go from untrained faith leader and he make a very, very negative change within the community if he doesn't believe in that. So I think religion have the power concerning or influencing in the people in a side or another concerning their background. So that's part of it. So as well, we have to make that the face actors can reach places and places or governments, NGOs. They have a struggle to engage, or maybe they have like a translation issues, for example, the gender justice and peace building social norms. So into language, it's like feel like a little bit different in term of language and so on. So I think we have to mobilize like volunteers from the young women to just start to help these faith leaders to make like we have like to make a connection between all the people within the community. Is not like working all together, and we make a lot of efforts in a different way, but we're not unify our effort in just one way to go all from there. So I think that's gonna make like a sustainable and a community owned. So that's basically in a very brief way, yeah.
Brilliant, thank you. And so with just 7 minutes to go, I'd love to ask, and Robin, if you might be so kind to go first, where do you find hope in times like these?
Thanks, Kate. My team scripted something, but I actually disagree with it. So I'm just gonna speak my mind. I actually find hope from today's youth. I get pulled out of bed every morning by two 4-year-olds, and they were not born to undermine others' human rights. They were not naturally born to destroy the environment. They were not born to silence others or to undermine their human dignity and development. And indeed, my almost 5-year-old daughter is now in the phase in which every other sentence is, "It's not you, it's me who decides." So I do believe that today's youth, starting at this age, actually have the values that we need to succeed and to overcome some of today's challenges. I'm particularly excited when I look at the role of youth organizations, when I look at how educated and insightful some of the young people who pass through my office or I sit in conferences with are. The use of modern technologies to break down divides, to share messages, to interact more dynamically with others. This is what gives me hope. And so we had, just a couple of months ago, our DAC Civil Society Days here in Paris. we had Aidan Eyakuze, the CEO of the Open Government Partnership, and he summed it up by saying, look, fear can paralyze, but on the other hand, courage can be contagious. So I leave you with that final thought.
Thank you so much, Robin. Sophia, where do you find hope?
I have to say, it's been a tough year. I don't rely on hope. I'm not hopeless, but I don't rely on it. Because hope for me is something passive, right? Where you wait for something to come. Actually, in Spanish, for all the people following that speak almost any Roman language, in Spanish, hope is esperanza, which shares the same etymological root than to wait, esperar, right? So I don't think we have the luxury of just hoping or relying on hope anymore. I try to focus on courage. Robin said that word, on courage, on actions to fulfill my responsibility as a person with knowledge, with a strong network, still some freedom living in this country, and power as an individual. So that's what keeps me going and motivated, courage and responsibility, more than hope.
Thank you. Passante.
Yeah, so I think my hope for the upcoming is that in the quiet resilience that's happening every day, in the being consistent, and also in that the young women continue to lead, even no one is watching them. So maybe in small community we start to work like slowly until we found like shift mindsets. So as well for the face leader who choose like compassion all over the fear and all over like the implementation of the rules all the time, and then maybe in solidarity and building across borders, and reminding us all that we are all humans by the end. So we have to accept ourselves as we are. We have to accept ourselves as we came from different backgrounds. So maybe acceptance and have the sense of compassion through each other. So I think that is going to change the community like slowly, but in a consistent way. We will find a way. Yeah. So I will recap it in being consistent and accept each other, and also quiet resilience.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And just kind of to reflecting on the conversation, I think some of the powerful messages that have come through are those that the destination hasn't changed, right? And in the same hand, humans are born with good morals of respect for each other and our neighbours, for acceptance. And actually, it's the pathway to that destination that we need to reflect on and possibly divert from what was mapped out 80 years ago or so. That sense of solidarity as we face the different challenges that the world is throwing at us are going to be really important in the way that we come together collectively to reimagine and redirect that road to our destination. And so I'd love to say a huge thank you to the International Centre for Civil Society for allowing us and giving us the space to have these conversations, and to everyone online for joining us. And I'd love to just leave you with a quote from Steve Maraboli, which simply says, life doesn't get easier or more forgiving. We get stronger and more resilient. And I feel that that perhaps is very much how we as civil society need to be kind of looking to our future and to protect our collective strength in protecting this world. So thank you very much, everyone, and hopefully see you in 15 minutes.